Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So Vergil Ortiz beats Fredrick Lawson by a first round stoppage. That doesn't tell the full story. There's no point talking about the fight itself because it never got going for one, and the stoppage was so egregious, so poor. It was a disgrace, honestly. I understand in life mistakes happen, but that was beyond the pale, quite frankly. Maybe the worst stoppage I've ever seen. Of course, Kenny Bayless not so long ago was behind the stoppage of Ishmael Barroso against Rolly Romero. That was bad. That was awful. Like, truly one of the worst stoppages I've seen. This was worse. This was worse. I mean, the fight barely got going. Ortiz came out like he does behind the guard, trying to get behind the jab and force his man back, apply pressure. And he was doing so. Lawson was letting go of his jab, going jab for jab with Vergil Ortiz. But when Ortiz was landing the jab, his was much more powerful, much more accurate, and much more telling. But Lawson was trying to box with Vergil Ortiz. Wasn't really landing much though. As the round progressed, Ortiz started to vary the jab from body to head, going up and down with it. Started to try to get the right hand into play, landed a couple right hands around the guard of Lawson. The crooked arm shots of Ortiz were getting blocked by Lawson though, like the attempted hooks to the head, the uppercuts to the head. He was blocking those shots quite well. Towards the end of round one, Ortiz actually landed a pretty good, a really good jab. It was like a counter power jab, and it kind of buckled Lawson a little bit. He wasn't badly hurt or anything. But he backed up against the ropes, and at this point, Vergil Ortiz started to let go of combinations, varying the shots from body to head. 99% of the head shots were blocked. Some of the body shots were getting through, but Lawson was doing a pretty good job defending himself. He wasn't firing back, but he was defending himself. Looked perfectly conscious and fine. And Kenny Bayless just jumps in to wave the fight off. Lawson at that point clearly wasn't hurt. Like I said, he was doing a pretty good job defending himself, in my opinion. So I don't know what Kenny Bayless saw there. Did he have a bet on round one? A stoppage in round one? Maybe. Maybe he did. But listen, if it's not corruption, then this guy is severely incompetent because he's done this now in less than a year. Twice. The Barroso stoppage against Romero, and now this. It's not hyperbole to say that Kenny Bayless should never referee a fight again. He's clearly incompetent. He's clearly not fit to referee anymore. Whether he was fit in the first place is another question. But this is just truly awful, unexplainable, unforgivable. Just put this guy out to pasture and get some younger referees who can actually move around the ring, who can actually get in the right positions. Because that's a big problem with many modern day referees. A lot of these guys are old, slovenly, fat, out of shape, and they can't move around the ring to keep up with a fight. I actually think that's a big issue with many modern day referees. There's so many of these old fat dinosaurs refereeing these mega fights. Obviously this wasn't a mega fight, but it's always the same old names, isn't it? And we see time and time again that, these guys fail to do their jobs, yet they still get these gigs. But, we talk about referees year in, year out, and nothing changes, so it is what it is. Terrible stoppage. Kenny Bayless should be fired, should step down, whatever it may be. I do feel for Fredrick Lawson, training only for that to happen in a round must be gutting. And I hear people say, well, he would have lost the fight anyway. And yeah, he would have, more than likely, but that doesn't excuse this stoppage. I notice people do that a lot with certain fights. If it's like a fight that is expected to go one way and we get a decision like this, that's what people always say. Oh, he was going to lose anyway. Let's stop deflecting from these referees and hold them to account, because that was terrible. As for Vergil Ortiz, he looked strong. One thing I will say, he actually looked quite good at the weight. You could tell he's put weight on. He looks more muscular. Looked like he was carrying the weight quite well at 154. I did wonder how he would look in the ring once he's rehydrated. He looked quite big, to be honest. So maybe Vergil will be fine at 54. But ultimately, you can't really gauge anything from this fight. Aside from aesthetics, he looked okay in terms of his body and whatnot. He looked quite strong. But aside from that, you can't really gain or gauge anything from this fight at all. So, I mean, where does Vergil Ortiz go from here? I saw that Tim Tszyu called him out. That would be a great fight. I would like to see Vergil Ortiz have one fight though before then against a guy who is reputable. Maybe Vergil Ortiz versus Brian Mendoza. That fight could make sense. I think that fight would be fine actually. Vergil Ortiz versus Brian Mendoza. That's a good fight. Brian Mendoza obviously beat Sebastian Fundora, knocked him out, and gave Tim Tszyu a pretty good fight. I think that's a good fight for Vergil Ortiz. Erickson Lubin is another one. Jesus Ramos, these sort of guys. There's some decent tests for him at 154, but I want to see him take one of these sort of fights before he fights a guy like Tim Tszyu, but it is what it is. Vergil Ortiz, where is he at? I don't really know. We shall see in the future, though. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.